the Dean of the Close School of Entrepreneurship to make some opening remarks.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Well, welcome to everyone. Friends, entrepreneurs, leaders, game changers, thank you so much. Such an exciting evening that we have planned for you, so thank you for joining us. As Dean of the Charles D. Close School of Entrepreneurship at Drexel University, I welcome you to Venture Café for this inaugural event announcing our very innovative Technology Entrepreneurship Leadership Council initiative, which you'll learn more about. I want to thank our sponsors, Steve and Carol Zerilli, New Spring Capital, the Science Center, Venture Café, for believing in and supporting our mission. And I'm very happy now to introduce the president of Drexel University to kick off the night. So John Fry was appointed Drexel's 14th president in 2010 and has earned a national reputation as an innovative urbanist, civic visionary, and transformational leader throughout his long career in higher education. Before coming to Drexel, he served for 8 years as president of Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, where he oversaw far-reaching changes in academic programming and campus development. At F&M, he spearheaded the Northwest Gateway Project, which transformed a massive 77-acre industrial swath adjacent to the college into a vibrant eds and meds corridor credited with revitalizing the city's economic downtown. From 1995 to 2002, President Fry was Penn's executive vice president under President Judith Rodin, where he served as an architect, coalition builder, and chief implementer of West Philadelphia's initiatives, which revolutionized the role that anchor institutions played in their communities and cities. Since coming to Drexel, and we're so grateful for that, President Fry has transformed the university into a comprehensive private R1 research university that is also a national model and leader in learning, urban innovation, civic engagement, and of course, entrepreneurship. The establishment of the Charles D. Close School of Entrepreneurship, the first dedicated and independent school of entrepreneurship in the nation, is a shining example of the President's advocacy for empowering students with innovative mindsets and entrepreneurial skills. The President is at the forefront of several major entrepreneurial initiatives such as Drexel's newly launched Innovation Fund, U City Square, and Schuylkill Yards. Last year, the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce bestowed upon President Fry its highest honor, the William Penn Award in recognition of Mr. Fry's vision and leadership in accelerating growth in Philadelphia's technology and life sciences sectors through the establishment of innovation districts on university-owned real estate. Please welcome President John Fry.
So let me just say, the idea of the closed school actually came from Donna. Donna, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember vividly during the strategic planning process, Donna had them listening in and said, you know, I jotted down a couple of ideas for this sort of idea of a school of entrepreneurship. And it was so good that I said, well, you know, do you want to start it up? Because she is the founding dean. And all these years later, 8 years now, and she's raised over $25 million to get this endeavor set up and running. Give her a round of applause. She's really done an extraordinary job. So Donna, congratulations. These kind of gatherings are all about you and Chuck Sacco and our great faculty and professional staff and students from the closed school. I'm really, really happy, though, tonight to be joined by my dear friend and longtime collaborator and the inspiration behind this council, Steve Zerilli. I mean, there are very few people in the world like Steve Zerilli. And there are very few people in this world like Carol Zerilli, who is sitting right here a few rows back. Carol, it's so great to see you. Welcome to Drexel. So it was Steve who came to me several years ago to call attention to the lack of collaboration and cohesion and strategic focus in Philadelphia's tech sector. This is, I think, when I was chair of the chamber, and especially when it came to nurturing young tech entrepreneurs. It was Steve who came up with the idea to form an entity that would provide a durable platform for providing tech entrepreneurs, including those from groups that have been underrepresented or excluded from tech, with access to coursework and mentoring, guidance, and seed funding for their startups. And it was Steve who embraced the idea of making Drexel and the closed school the council's home, because he knew two things. The first is that he knew no other university could match Drexel's expertise and track record for supporting and guiding aspiring entrepreneurs towards launching and scaling their startups. And number two, he knew that when it came to advancing equity in Greater Philadelphia's tech scene, Drexel could be counted on to walk the walk. So for example, at Drexel, we're proud to be partnering with the University City Science Center on launching the Rainier Seed Fund Initiative, which provides pre-seed investment and post-investment support for scalable startups developed by entrepreneurs from the region's underserved population. The Rainier Seed Fund and the Technology Entrepreneurship Leadership Council beautifully complement each other in doing two important things. One, providing access to capital for talented young entrepreneurs, and second, providing access to expert training and mentoring that empower them with the requisite skills and experience to scale their businesses. But this is not just about trying to find the next Michael Dell in a dorm room or a garage and cultivating them and bringing them along. This is about putting Philadelphia on the map as a global leader in tech. We've all heard about Austin's emergence, for example, as a booming global tech hub that rivals Silicon Valley and Boston. But Austin does not have what Philadelphia already has, which is real diversity in our tech sector. CIO magazine recently ranked Philadelphia as the 6th fastest growing tech hub by salary, and the 3rd most diverse U.S. city for STEM, with the highest representation of women in STEM at 30% of the tech workforce. Talk about a real asset to work with. So this is an instance where Philadelphia's diversity definitely provides us with a huge competitive advantage nationally. But we need to develop a sophisticated entrepreneurship ecosystem that can leverage that competitive advantage around diversity in tech. And my hope is that the conversations that we have and the relationships that we form at this inaugural event and subsequently will kickstart that process. So before I turn the program over to Steve, I just want to say one more thing about him, not to embarrass you, Steve, but you chose us and gave us the opportunity to help be the sponsor for this event, but it's also true that Drexel and Donna and the closed school could not wish for a better and more inspiring partner to lead this endeavor than you. Steve has never been afraid to think and lead outside the box when it comes to making the Science Center, for example, a greater force for scientific discovery and civic progress. And he's also a wizard, naturally gifted in creating partnerships that bring out the best in all of us. And I have been the recipient of those partnerships, and they have made a real difference for me. So Steve, I can't tell you how happy we are to see you here, to have you with us, how excited we are to work with you. I'll turn it over to you.
It's always gratifying when you see a vision become a reality. And this has been on my to-do list for a very long time, to try to bring attention to the cohesion of resources that we have here in Philadelphia to support the entrepreneurial community. Interestingly, just a fun fact, if you had just dialed the clock back, and if I still had been at Safeguard, between Scott at Ben Franklin, Mike at New Spring, and Safeguard Scientifics, that would have been probably more than half of the capital intended to be used for early stage ventures. And it's that cohesion that I think actually makes us a world-class place to promote entrepreneurship. And with Drexel and their resources, and a vast foundation of business and science and engineering and entrepreneurship, it's a real winner. So I wanted to bring together some thoughts and leadership tonight in order to discuss what else can we do with the assets that we have, and how can we best promote this region and support our entrepreneurial community. And I say that from the standpoint of being an entrepreneur myself, that actually got my start across the street thankfully to Dr. Louis Padullo here, who gave us space here at the Science Center, raised capital from the likes of people like Mike DiPiano and others who believed in the mission. So I know it from all sides of the venue. And I do believe that one of the missing ingredients for a company to be successful is to have a strong management team to take the idea that the founder has to the next level. And that management team needs to have real leadership in order to survive the challenges that a company's going to face in its travels. So with that, we'll get the panel discussion started, and I'll turn it over to Donna.
Thank you, Steve.
So welcome again. We have such an amazing, distinguished panel. I think that all of you have a program, so all of their amazing bios are on the back of the program, but I'm just going to quickly introduce them and welcome them officially. So to my left, I guess you're right, is Nicole White, who is the founder and CEO of Wealthmore. Let's give her a round of applause. My friend Mike DiPiano, next to Mr. Zarilli, general partner of New Spring Capital. Welcome, Mike. Scott Nissenbaum, president and CEO of Ben Franklin Technology Partners. Welcome to Scott. Ian Fitzpatrick, chief strategy officer of Archetype. Khalil Weiss, senior director of experience and digital. Oh no, that's wrong. Serial entrepreneur and educator, sorry. And adjunct professor at the Charles D. Close School of Entrepreneurship. Khalil, thank you. And Jen Michelle, who is the senior director of experience and digital transformation of the Science Center. I reversed your roles. Okay, so we're going to have a great panel discussion, and we'll allow time at the end for questions. So my first question is to my friend Nicole. So as the founder of Wealthmore, FinTech, right? Absolutely. What has been your experience as a diverse female tech entrepreneur in this Philadelphia ecosystem?
Thank you, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled that Wealthmore is a Philadelphia wealth tech. That was super important to us. I have been in the New York market, also in the California market, and it was super important for us to found this company here and to tap into this amazing ecosystem. And also, I didn't want to have to wear a hoodie. And I knew you guys would appreciate that. But my experience has been really, really fantastic. You know, in many ways, I'm an entrepreneur who took a bit of a detour and spent 20 years in corporate America, but I built products there. I learned how to sort of grow fintech products. And so now this feels like a far more comfortable transition. And the community has been everything but welcoming. From introductions, making sure that I was sort of understanding what resources were available. The angel networks, Ben Franklin, Tech Partners, of course, have been just tremendous. Donna and her team, the Rainier Fund, all of these things make a tremendous difference. But what I would say is we still have a lot of opportunity to help founders, particularly women and Black founders. Today, we still sit at 2% of all VC dollars going to women. That should make you all gasp, like 2%, when women are 51% of the population. By any statistical measure, something is really wrong. And then when we look at Black-brown founders, less than 1%. When you have a diverse community that represents 40% of the population, and they're still getting less than 1% of the capital, we're just sub-optimizing the ecosystem. We're not allowing people to bring their amazing ideas to the forefront, and we're actually hurting our GDP. Studies have been shown, you can look them up, we're actually hurting our GDP, we're making our country less competitive by not investing in the full spectrum of our talent pool. You can invest in wealth more. I welcome your dollars. But please invest in more founders. There's certainly opportunity for us in our local market at the pre-seed level. There's a lot of investment that goes into companies that are post-revenue, but we definitely need more dollars coming in to the pre-seed level. When founders have that initial idea, we want to nurture those ideas. We want to give them the resources. We want to help them build the technology. I love Drexel. I went to Villanova. I would come to Drexel all the time. The engineering schools here are bar none. There's no reason why we can't build amazing software right here. We have the talent. We shouldn't have to run to California. I shouldn't have to find resources offshore to build my app. It's right here. So I'm so excited that we're pulling these resources together so that we can find a way to take it from that very sort of basic seed idea, and I'm a major gardener, so I know all about seeds and having them grow, but that's really what we need. More capital at the pre-seed, those early stages. I know people are generous with your time, be even more generous. Financial capital helps, but so does social capital. So helping the company get that first customer, helping them get the right advisor. If you see a founder who has a gap in their skill set and you can help them close that gap on the management team, those things make a wealth of difference. And then of course, we certainly need funding as we go through these rounds. We want unicorns, a lot of them. You know, if I were in California, I'd be talking about decacoins, right? We want more of those. But that financing journey is a long one. It goes from the 1 million to the 10 million to 20 million, raising 100 million. And so as we think about our companies, we want to nurture them from that pre-seed all the way up. That's how we make a difference. That's how we sort of take the crown from the Silicon Valley, from the New Yorks, the Atlanta, the Austins. Like Miami's even a bigger market than we are, and I just think we have far more talent here. We have far more universities, scientists, engineers, and just really this unique opportunity to really grow this ecosystem.
Thank you. Mike, I'm going to throw this to you. Pass the mic to Mike. So, you know, Mikhail just talked about really a lot about financial capital. And so in your experience at New Spring, I'm going to take a little bit of a different direction. So what would your advice be for a tech entrepreneur as they're building their company, right? Developing their own style of leadership? Should they leverage relationships with existing board members? Do you think they should find it's more advantageous to create a new advisory board? Because to Mikhail's point, that advice is very critical. So what do they do about their boards?
Well, most of the time the boards are made up by the investor groups, right? So they have to deal with their investors and the boards. But you need to branch out. Mikhail's right. You need to network and develop relationships because building a business is so difficult, it's so challenging. So you've got to get external. You know, a CEO of a business really only needs to do 4 things. You need to have a strategy. You need to allocate capital to the right projects. You need to allocate HR to the right projects. And then you need to go out and visit customers, visit strategic partnerships, visit capital providers well in advance of when you need it. So I think it's both, your existing board and then broadening it out to an advisory group, either officially or unofficially.
Okay. Comment a little bit about diversity on boards, what your experience has been.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about that now.
It's, Mikhail's also correct about that. Most boards are very diverse, to be honest. You see a lot of the same people that look like me in my age bracket or younger now. That's changing. You're seeing more female on boards, particularly in audit roles and if they have a particular strategic background. There's ESG that's pushing it coming out of Europe, so that's helpful. People are aware of it. Pretty much every board seat that we fill, we're thinking about it. But frankly, we need to do a better job.
Do you see more board training for females and for underrepresented? Do you think that's an important piece of where this?
I think it's important, but I don't see it. In most boards, you're selecting people, and then you get into meetings and you start working. And there's not a lot of board training unless it's a public company. I sit on some public company boards, lots of training there, but not so much when it's a private company. Right?
Thank you. Something we should think about, Steve.
I just wanted to add a thought. I was 36 when I had my first company, and I didn't know much about running a board at that time. And it was really the board members that I could establish relationships with that mentored me into becoming an effective CEO and trying to manage those relationships. It's only after you get through that part of the process do you realize that you need to really build a board that has multiple talents. And to Mike's earlier point, you generally don't get a chance to craft your board at an early stage because the capital investors are going to want those positions. But you will get the chance, and it's that point that I think needs to be emphasized. And when you need to be prepared so that when you do get the chance, you are ready to seed that board and manage that board and then grow your company because of that board. And it's that gap that I'm hoping we can close for many of the entrepreneurs that are trying to become successful going forward. It's that leadership skill that I think is most important.
So just a follow-up, because this is interesting. So, you know, in the Closed School of Biata Institute, some of our student entrepreneurs are here. There are so many things they're thinking about. And I think thinking about a board, I'm guessing, is not the first thing on their minds, right? So, Steve, go ahead.
Chances are not, I mean, and because that young entrepreneur doesn't know what the board means and what the board is supposed to do. What they do, what I looked at it as was, here were a bunch of older individuals who were going to tell me how to run my company. And I didn't look at it as, here are a number of individuals that can help me grow my company and help me avoid the mistakes that I was eventually going to make. And that's one of the most important things a young entrepreneur has to remind themselves of. Yes, it's your company. That board is there to help you avoid the pitfalls that you invariably will hit at some point.
I wanted to add one thing. I totally agree that there is a hierarchical relationship, right? It's there, but you would be so shocked, the entrepreneurs would be so shocked at how the board members, how reliant they are on the operating teams for the businesses. It's 100% what we rely on. So that hierarchical barrier has to get pierced to build that relationship of trust. And it's on both parties' part to make that happen. And sometimes it doesn't.
Scott, Ben Franklin Tech Partners.
Hello.
Hello. What are you seeing? What trends and opportunities are you seeing in tech entrepreneurship in Philadelphia today? And how are they being leveraged, if at all, by leaders in this field?
So I'm really excited you asked me this question, because this is one of those like, oh, I'm going to make this audience listen to me pontificate about the future of technology. This is amazing. So I will say, I think Philadelphia in particular, but technology in general, is at the really weird tipping point of science fiction becoming reality. It's accelerating to a point at which it's almost unrecognizable from magic. And I say that with both excitement and a little bit of fear. Ben Franklin heavily invests in life sciences, and we heavily invest in tech. And so I'll give you a quick example of both. We spun a technology out of a local university, not Drexel, unfortunately, and they had an HIV expert, and they had a geneticist that got together, and they used the technology of CRISPR, which is a gene editing tool, to make all human beings immune to HIV. So if you have HIV or you're exposed to HIV, you are genetically no longer able to keep it or carry it. We put in $400,000, we spun it out of the university. They raised over $100 million, including $25 million from the federal government. They actually think it works for any virus. So they hone in on where the 4 little cubes on your DNA attach. They cut that out of the human genome, assuming we don't all turn into zombies. We're now immune to that virus state. And they're in clinical trials with human beings right now for HIV, hepatitis, and one other that I can't remember. That, to me, is pure science fiction, right? Like, that's not real. That's not a thing. Well, there's $100 million that says it is. And then, so how many of you have played with ChatGPT yet? Okay. And that crowd kind of skews lower. Or standard diffusion. Okay. So AI has pretty much just woken up and decided that there are a lot of things that AI can do on the technology side that human beings used to do better, but they don't anymore. I'm helping my son with his startup, and he wrote a bunch of code for a mobile game. And then he took the code, because he's 19 years old, and this is things that 19-year-olds do that I wouldn't have thought of, and he put it into ChatGPT, and he said, make it better. And it made it better in 15 seconds. I'm sorry, what? Like, you know, it literally, and of course he's a gifted programmer, and he goes, oh no, I see that, like, no, this is better. Like, that's the future, and it works as a human interaction, it helps as coding. You can take a term paper and say, write this from a Russian perspective. And now you have a whole new term paper that feels and is different than the earlier one. That's reality of technology today. Now, Philadelphia is the world leader, in my opinion, in cell and gene therapy. We have 60 companies, including the first clinical trial that went public, which is Spark Therapeutics. There are 60 different companies. We're literally building 8 million square feet of wet lab space for cell and gene therapy, and we're investing in the technologies, the picks and shovels, to accelerate that growth. It is the future, and it's a little scary because of all the implications. And just to finish, because I think it's fun, if you haven't read the book Lifespan, go read it. Because they think aging is a disease that they have a cure for. And I'm not going to do justice to the Harvard Medical School professor that's the one's talking about that. I read the book, and again, the oh shit moment kind of hits you going, well, what does that mean? So, technology trends today are amazing. Philadelphia's at the center of one of the biggest ones, which is cell and gene therapy. We're not falling behind in blockchain. We're not falling behind in AA. We're not falling behind in any markets. And we do have an opportunity to really lead, specifically in cell and gene therapy.
I want the reference for the aging thing. Ian, archetype, portfolio of healthcare companies. So how have leaders in tech entrepreneurship kind of adapted to changes in technology and the business environment over time? What are you seeing particularly in the healthcare sector?
Good evening, everyone. I'm not from Philadelphia, you may have noticed. I am from Scotland. And although I've lived in Philadelphia longer than I've lived in any other city, and Miguel, the unicorn is the national animal of Scotland. Look it up, it's true. And I tell people like that, they go, no, look it up. And if any of you have seen a sort of a UK passport, you'll see the lion of England, and it's the unicorn of Scotland on the other side of the thing. So, put that aside. I mean, I did say to you when I arrived, geez, you can make it a bit easier for me, cover leadership, healthcare, entrepreneurialism, and technology.
I gave you that question on purpose.
In one point. So I want to touch on all 4 of those things and then see where that brings us to from an intersection perspective. I mean, in terms of what we're looking from leaders, I think, and this applies to all leaders, and again, we'll walk through the 4. I mean, I think we all recognize it's a funky market. I've been around the block a few times. People have been around even more blocks than me. We're living in an environment of a combination of rising rates, still high inflation, and yet record unemployment. So that is creating, if not unprecedented situations where as leaders will say, we don't have a playbook for this. If we look at the changes, the structural changes to the workforce post-COVID, there's a terrific piece in The Economist last weekend which talked about the changes in supply of demand. I never liked the term great resignation, but I think great reshuffle is real in terms of you look at churn rates across the economy, those have increased, and the structural changes to the labour market that come from mainly older workers coming out of the labour market of COVID is real, and it's created a supply-demand gap of 3 million jobs. So again, those are macro challenges which all leaders are having to face. Multi-generational workforces, what that means in terms of changed expectations around DEI, ESG, some of the things that people have already, so the kind of leaders we're talking about can't escape those realities and need to have the leadership skills to be able to address them. In the healthcare world, I mean, again, echo the points that other panelists have made, and we know that the consumerization of the healthcare market is real, again, accelerated by COVID. I mean, the well-quoted line of Lenin recently, in recent times, Vladimir, not John, and he said, nothing will happen for decades and then decades can happen in weeks. The acceleration of trends in the healthcare market, again, is real and a requirement to adapt to in the way that we're talking about. Entrepreneurialism, again, I'll come at this from a slightly different angle and talk about changes in the regulatory environment. Again, have been very significant in recent times, and that is creating extraordinary opportunities for entrepreneurs in this space. If you look at, I mean, one of the most recent, one of the earliest moves by the new governor here in Pennsylvania was to remove the degree requirement for a whole load of jobs within the state. Big round of applause for that. A lot of the licensing requirements that were quite frankly unnecessary and protective, those regulatory changes, again, creating real opportunities for our entrepreneurs. And lastly, technology. I mean, and there's people again on this panel better to talk about it. Me, Scott has already talked about what people are calling the Kodak moment of that. The ChatGPT. I mean, that's real. That's made this extraordinary change. We've got Brian Richford here, who he and I are on the tie board together. No graphite in the world of no code and low code. Again, these are realities of the tech environment. So leadership, healthcare, entrepreneurship, technology. If we look at the intersection of all those 4 topics, it's what people who study this in Drexel and other areas will talk about the requirement for adaptive leadership. And I could tell you a story about soccer. I'm sure it wouldn't work, so I'll use a sport of my adopted homeland, if not an adopted home. Gretzky's famous line, I'm not going where the puck is, I'm going where the puck is going. So in terms of the requirements for leaders of entrepreneur health technology, they need to be Gretzky's, they need to be adaptive, they need to be going where the puck is going.
So this is a great segue. Thank you. This is a great segue to Khalil. Khalil, so truth be told, Khalil teaches in the Close School of Entrepreneurship. He's like super duper professor in the Close School, loved by students. I won't let him go. He's also a serial entrepreneur, and as you probably could guess, education is close to my heart. I think education makes a big difference. I think we can create entrepreneurs and leaders. And so, Khalil, as an educator and a mentor, a serial entrepreneur, what are your thoughts on the current generation of tech entrepreneurship, and in particular, tech entrepreneur leaders helping to cultivate the next generation of tech entrepreneurs and ensure diversity and inclusivity, particularly since you're so close to the student population and student entrepreneurs?
Great question. Just a quick show of hands. Has anybody ever worked with or for a great leader? Anybody ever worked with, we'll call them not such a great leader, you might still work with them? But with that said, change starts from within. So I believe it's important for leadership to set the culture and the foundation of how organizations are going to grow. So one of the things that I always do with my students is when we get to the point in my class where we write out the mission, vision, and the culture statements, is I impress upon them that you gotta bake diversity into that, because when you do that, because of those core values and mission and vision statement, that's what drives the company. So I work with a lot of the at-risk youth as well, and one of the things I find is there's a network gap. So we talked about network. And in order to fix that, there's a few things I'm going to talk about that. But I found personally, when I work with the at-risk youth, as well as some of the students, that when you have that network gap, there's a lack of resources that you have access to. So LinkedIn has two great initiatives that I'm excited that they have in play. One is called the +1 Pledge, which is an internal as well as an external plan, where they encourage people to connect people like through a warm network. So if I saw one of my students that might be applying for a grant or a loan or something, they had to post it, I would use my warm network to connect them, because that's a little better than a cold network connection. The other initiative that they have is a program called Reach. And what Reach does is allows people who ordinarily wouldn't have access to the tech jobs, people who wouldn't have access ordinarily to the tech jobs, to have those opportunities, kind of like a mentorship training program that they open up, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times out of the year. So as leaders in the industry, in different companies, you want to be able to open an opportunity for networks to happen, because I have a food service background as well, and I use that, like we use tonight, as an opportunity to network. So we can leverage technology as a networking opportunity. When I was a mentor for a program called HopeWorks in Camden, they have a technology-based program where the students who ordinarily wouldn't have access to computers, they actually trained them on how to build websites, and they also had a big project we were working on where they built a lot of the maps for South Jersey and Philadelphia, and went on to have jobs in those particular arenas. So I think that's important to leverage the technology in the networking. And also, last I want to close out is with different opportunities. There's a website called edX.org and mentor.org. What edX.org does, it allows students who might not be able to afford to go to a Harvard or a Stanford or a Drexel to take courses to get the knowledge, because the knowledge is important, and that will give them some of the foundational things. As when we network with those particular students, they already feel confident in the skill set, and then they can move forward from there. So those are the things I think that are important.
Thank you. Khalil, just a quick question. In dealing with students at Drexel and in your younger people, so we find at the Close School at Drexel that this generation, they all want to solve problems. They're very keen on solving problems, finding a company that fits with their values. What are you seeing in students with respect to not only to that, but also to views on diversity and inclusion? Is something that you see as top of mind with students today?
I know when I came up, and I don't want to age myself here too much, you were told to go get a good job, make good money, and all that great stuff. But with today's shift in the mindset, people want to feel valued. So it's not necessarily all about the money, it's about what they can contribute. And as a CEO or a leader, you want to make them feel like they're building something special, that they're adding value, and they're not just a number. I know when I was in the military, I felt like I was a number. But once you embrace that culture change inside, the change within your organization, and you allow them to be part of the process, that's one of the biggest things that I see the students are wanting to just be able to add value and feel like they're actually helping the company grow and not just there for a check.
Thanks. So Jen, here at the Science Center, what do you think the role is, or what has been the role, what will be the role of the Science Center in promoting diversity, particularly for tech entrepreneurs?
So first of all, we're so happy to have you all here. Thank you so much at
Thank you for
Venture
hosting.
Café. So the Science Center is a 60-year-old institution, and it's always been built on creating a neutral platform to commercialize promising technologies. And we're focusing specifically on healthcare and healthcare inequities, as well as using entrepreneurship as a way to create economic inclusive growth in the region. And I think we do that in 2 ways. One is through building the workforce that we need to keep businesses here, through our workforce development program, through our STEM program for high school and middle school students, and then also through various commercialization programs and capital activities, one of them being Venture Café, here with our on-ramp program. So that's really for our early stage companies. And I would say we know that we need diversity at the highest levels in all sectors. But what we're seeing is every company is a technology company. Every health company is a technology company. And at the rate that things are evolving, we need more urgently than ever diversity at the highest levels. So in addition to our on-ramp program, we have a Founders Fellowship for first-gen students who are coming through, and instead of going right into starting their company, they're working with our team to do 6 months of really learning all the ins and outs of venture capital, so that then when they're ready to start, they then have 6 months where they're working through starting their business with all of that background. So all of the background that you were mentioning, Steve, in terms of building those things. And then we also just launched our Capital Readiness Program, and that was a week-long program for entrepreneurs who are about to go out and raise. It was a week-long intensive with 6 investors from all over the country. And what's particularly important is not only was the class cohort itself of founders 50% diverse, but the investors themselves were also 50% diverse. And so it's really being able to show at the highest level, that's where we need that leadership, and we know that we can't do it alone, and it's so urgent with the rate that things are advancing. So that's why we're incredibly excited to partner with Drexel and the ecosystem partners here to really make that move for Philadelphia.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you so much.
Because we believe that we have the opportunities here in Philadelphia, along with Drexel and other organizations, that if working in tandem, we can make Philly the go-to place, not just for gene therapy, but for all forms of entrepreneurship, and even attract capital and talent to the city. For those of you who don't know my story, I had the privilege of working here at the Science Center as its CEO. Up until the time I suffered a catastrophic stroke in 2019. It was the best job I had, and it was the best job because it gave me the opportunity to look around the community and understand the resources that we had. And that's what led to the thought that I wanted to try to find a conduit, if you will, to gather the information about those resources and have those organizations work with each other to foster this community. Because we're a well-kept secret in a lot of respects in our resources. So I've been at Ben Franklin. Actually, I was the chair of the board there for many years. I was a capital provider. This guy actually mentored me for many years. I wanted to get other leaders involved in this discussion tonight. Thank you. Because I think it's important that we're granting you access to this type of thought process. The closed School of Entrepreneurship is a perfect place for these endeavors to reside. Founding Dean Carolus, Donna DeCarolis, was so excited about having this as a part of her toolkit that it's hard to say, no, let's make it happen. But we are at the starting point of what I think is a great opportunity to really rally these resources for the benefit of entrepreneurs, young and old. So, and just giving you all access to other thoughts around experience and diversity and inclusion, I think is our primary focus. And we're going to keep working on that with the help of the Science Center to make that a reality in the future. Thank you.